Should Lord Freud resign from his post as Welfare Reform Minister following his comments about the disabled?
Jeremy Hunt.
Well, first of all, I don't defend what he said. Those words were utterly appalling. And if they...
Which were the words that were appalling to you?
Well, the suggestion that people should be paid less than the minimum wage if they were disabled. And if they represented a view that disabled people are worth less than everyone else, I was Shadow Minister for Disabled People in Opposition, then he should go. But if you look at the context, and this is a man who is passionate about getting disabled people into work. He worked for the last Labour government on that, and then he worked for this government. What he was actually doing was drawing attention to a scandal, which is that for the most severely mentally disabled people, only 1 in 10 of them get a job. And the vast majority of them would like to work, but unfortunately employers won't offer the jobs. And he foolishly allowed himself to get drawn into a scenario which they do in some other European countries, where you reduce the minimum wage and the state tops it up. That would be the wrong thing to do. It would send completely the wrong signal to do that. But I do think it was thoughtless words rather than offensive views, and I know it won't be popular, but I do think he should be given a second chance.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Jeremy on that.
Go on then.
I think it was clearly a very clumsy choice of words, and those words have caused offence. But if you look carefully at the context that he was talking in and the exact question that he was answering from a councillor, what he was actually, the spirit of what he was trying to say is, how can we enable more disabled people to get into work? So he was reflecting on a really difficult and unfortunate reality, which is, as Jeremy says, a lot of disabled people find it very hard to compete in the jobs market, and he was speculating in a rather unfortunate way, perhaps thinking aloud, which is something politicians should rarely do.
But we were looking at some of the things that have been said about this, and the charity MenCap, disability charity of people with mental ill health, back in 2000, actually drew attention to the difficulties of the national minimum wage and asked the government to have a look and see if they could find a way around the problem, which suggests that...
Yes.
Does that suggest to you, Angela Eagle, that what Lord Freud said was actually what MenCap said?
They're not saying that now, and actually I do think he should resign. I think what he said was offensive. I think it's caused a great deal of offence to disabled people. There are 50% of people with disabilities who aren't in work at the moment. The answer to that isn't to somehow weaken the minimum wage and make them work for less than the minimum wage, which, by the way, is a legal minimum. It's actually to go out and evangelise to employers about the benefits of employing people with disabilities. He didn't talk about doing that. He talked about actually putting their wages down to £2 an hour.
And topping them up from the state.
Now,
and topping them up from the state.
Let's get this clear. And topping them up...
He is the minister responsible for this policy, and he should... I think it's very revealing of this government's approach to things, that they think the pressure should always be on people's wages.
No, but Angela, that's absolute rubbish. He was not talking about simply paying somebody £2. What he was suggesting...
Said go away and think about
What he was suggesting was that some people might be willing to work for less if their wage was topped up by some kind of government scheme. I don't think that's that outlandish. And more, I think it's actually happened. I'm not completely sure of my facts here, but I think there have been pilot schemes in Wales on this.
OK. You were saying in the front row there. And then I'll come to you. Yes. No, in the second row, yes.
I just wanted to make a quick point, because if an MP had to resign every time he made a clumsy comment, there wouldn't be any MPs left in Parliament. So.
And the man in the dark blue shirt behind.
Angela Eagle's comments, I think she's been extremely disingenuous. I think we all know exactly what he meant, even though he said it clumsily.
Well, you're trying very
And I think by the smirk on her face as she was saying it, she realises that too.
Yeah.
Do we? Do we?
Yes.
Do we actually think that the person responsible for welfare reform should have those views about people with
He
disabilities?
was trying to help.
Nobody believes.
Because personally, I don't.
Nobody
I think
believes
he's
they are
unfit.
his views. He's just
unfit
clumsy in the
to
way he
stay
announced
in
it.
government, and he should resign.
Angela, he's trying to
What do you
help
believe
people,
his
not
views
the
to be?
opposite.
Hang on, listen to
I
the
think
member
he
of the
was
public
making.
speaking there. I'll go to the gentleman.
I think he was making a general statement rather than announcing his own opinion. It was a statement, really, that disabled people generally find it difficult to be able to earn that level of money. It wasn't an opinion so much, it was a statement of...
So why don't we actually go out and try to persuade employers of the many benefits of employing people with disabilities? Why don't we do something about discrimination against people with disabilities in the workplace? Why do we always have to say people with disabilities have to work for less than the minimum wage?
That's not what was being said. That's not what's being said.
You, sir, with the beard there.
The gentleman who asked the question was interviewed on local television. He has a daughter who is a child who is disabled, and the person who asked the question was concerned that his sibling could not, his child could not actually do the minimum wages worth of work for the employer, and he was asking, is there a way that the government can subsidise the employment of this person, and the minister agreed he would go away and look at it.
All right.
And what you're doing is hypocritical political point scoring, and it's disgusting.
If I may reply to this gentleman, and I'm not a politician and I'm not interested in people's votes, and I completely get the fact that politicians have a difficult job and they say silly things under pressure when the lights are on and the camera... Hang on. I think the thing that was difficult about what he said was actually he used this word worth. Yeah. And I think there is a sense that that's a sort of... It touches a nerve. Now, I don't think he should resign. I think what he said was badly judged. But the real problem is not a short choice of words that you might get clumsily wrong. The real problem is that comes in the context of many disabled people feeling particularly got at the moment, particularly in the context of welfare reform and the sorts of assessments they're having to do. There's been lots of stories about the way in which disabled people are... There's all sorts of issues with suicide rates at the moment about disabled people because the way in which they're feeling particularly targeted. Now, I don't think he should go, but I think that that's why this touched a very raw nerve, because of that term, worth.
All right. Min Campbell.
I understand why we're concentrating on what he actually said, but I think this is a more profound question. It's a question of dignity and of ensuring that every citizen is worth the same as every other citizen, and that we contribute to our society in the way that we are best capable of doing so. And it was extremely clumsy language to use, but, you know, sometimes out of clumsy language comes good, sometimes comes out of bad. And if anything is done more to raise the whole question of the issue of disabled people being in employment, it's probably the last 24 hours. And we should therefore, it's an old public relations maxim, out of every crisis comes an opportunity. We take the opportunity now to make it clear to employers up and down the length and breadth of the country that we will not accept anything other than fair treatment at their hands on behalf of people who are disabled.
Exactly.
And the question was whether he should resign. Do you think he should resign?
No, I don't. It was clumsy, but he's on probation, and we will... his judgment about his contribution to public life will, to a large extent, depend on what he does now in order to redeem himself.
All right. We have only about 15 seconds left for you.
I just wanted to see whether you would use that as a political football, and you have done. Thanks, Angela. I think what you could have said is that the backlash from this comment has actually highlighted something that is wrong with our society, and that is that leaders need to have integrity in what they do. The end shouldn't justify the means. I think a job can mean an awful lot to a disabled person. And I think leaders should really think about that when...
Thank you very much. We have to stop, I'm afraid. There's still some hands up, but I can't overrun the hour we've got, I'm sorry to say.